Hello there, I'm Squire Callahan Ridgeborn, almost a battlemaster, always a wizard, and tonight it is my pleasure to be joined once again by Tyrant Asche Palantir, a Paragon Anti-Paladin of the Rising Winds. Ash, welcome back to the show. I'm so excited to have you in.
Hi, Callahan. Yeah, this is number three. Happy to be here.
Ooh, the Rare 3 Club. Well, and this is a extra special episode because we're actually kicking off 12 Days of Paragons. I'm going to be interviewing 12 different Paragons from 12 different classes, 12 different kingdoms. And today's day one of this. It's going to be released every day leading all the way up to Christmas. So this is going to be a fun series. I've already pre-recorded some of the other videos. It's been a blast so far, and I'm excited to get you in here to talk about possibly the class that you roleplay the most as. So
Yeah, it certainly has been the one that has most typified my character, to say the least.
well, and you're representing the home kingdom of Rising Winds. That's where I'm from. For anyone who isn't from the Rising Winds, can you tell us where the Rising Winds is located?
The Rising Winds, I guess it's a giant radiating blob out from Indianapolis, Indiana. It has infected parts of Michigan, Ohio, northern Kentucky, and even has slunk its terrible tendrils down into West Virginia.
Yeah, we have really spread the kingdom wide, and people have commented a couple times. They'd love to see more out of kingdom paragons. I'm like, guys, there's so many here. Got to get through at least a majority of them before I even start looking at other places. So we've
Do
done
you
a
know it
lot of
used to be
them.
bigger?
It used to
Like,
be even bigger.
oh yeah, when I started, the Rising Winds went all the way out into St. Louis and beyond.
Holy
Tal'Doror
bananas!
is a principality of ours that broke off, and
Wow.
I mean we also had Polaris as a principality, although we kind of like adopted them. You know, if that
Mm.
makes any sense. Like, we gifted them like two of our northernmost, parks, and then they had already existed as part of their kingdoms. They don't really count, but all of Tal'Doror used
Hmm.
to be part of the Rising Winds, and so if you think we're big now, you know what I mean? Like, we have people
We've cut
coming
back
here.
a little bit. We lost some weight.
Oh yeah.
Dang. Okay. Well, let's jump in and start talking about Anti-Paladin because I've been looking forward to talking with you about Anti-Paladin for a long time. Ever since our Battle Master, Battle Knight interview, I've kind of wanted to get you in to talk about Anti-Paladin. So, what is the main job of an Anti-Paladin on the battlefield?
Break. They are there to bust open a weak part of the line and cause
Hmm.
as much damage as possible. Now, personally, I believe that of the tank classes, if you will, warrior, paladin,
Hmm.
anti-paladin, that is the one that has the most ability to cause a disruption in the battle line. And so I think that if you when you are thinking of your job as a anti-paladin, is much less of a defensive role and much more of an offensive role.
Okay. So they're the can opener that's breaking through and opening up the
The
lines.
shock trooper.
Oh, okay, okay. What's your favorite kind of battle game to play Anti-Paladin in?
So I think anti-paladin works in every battle game. But I do think that anti-paladin typically works best when it has natural terrain that can help protect it from its natural enemy, the verbal and/or ice ball.
Mm.
I think it works really well in a tight, contained areas like a bridge battle or like an interior space for people who play in like either inside or inside like say like paintball forts and stuff like that. Its ability to cause damage is always restricted by its ability to not get hit with CC that is often targeted at it. And so if it can get a good flank in an area where you can't see him coming from a mile away, or it can work with other defensive classes such as paladins and warriors and be backed up by wizards that you can't just walk around them to get,
Mm-hmm.
then I think that's really excels. But having said that, I don't think that there's like a terrain that is bad for anti-paladins. I think it is holistically a good class in almost every scenario.
It feels like Anti-Paladin has been on the rise a lot lately, and the archetypes definitely gave it a big boost. It feels like it's in a really good spot,
Yes.
like really, really good. But going back a ways, why did you start playing Anti-Paladin?
So we have to go quite back a ways. in order
Ooh.
to talk about why I started playing Anti-Paladin, because when I started playing Anti-Paladin, you had to be a knight in order to play Anti-Paladin. Paladin, Anti-Paladin as classes, as they were designed, were sort of prestige classes. And when I became a Crown Knight in 2016, that the choice between playing a Paladin and playing an Anti-Paladin was quite easy. I am well known as the vicious tyrant of the
Mhm.
Rising Winds, and so playing the bad guy class sort of it spoke to me. The class at the time was fairly different than the class we have today, although some of its iconic elements are still in place. I was never a knight during V7, and most of your audience probably either doesn't even know or didn't play that, or nostalgically remembers it,
Mhm.
where it should be firmly in the past, never to be returned to. But in V8, when I started playing it, it lacked a lot of its more aggressive elements. A
Mhm.
lot of people say that it was sort of designed for them to be special classes for knights, but like subtly weakened so that when knights got those classes, that they wouldn't be like breaking the battlefield. And for a while, for example, back then, anti-paladins, they didn't get flame blade or what's it called, void touched. They got
Mhm.
the regular undead minion, not even the greater version. The regular undead minion twice a game. So
Seems,
and working kind of bad,
yeah, yeah. Undead minion, just standard undead minion, just they were suppressed and were they,
fragile.
yeah, they were fragile too, which I really like the new undead minion rework. It makes it a lot more playable, but
Less confusing as well. I think that there were a
mhm,
lot of stipulations that, in theory, the old undead minions made them balanced, but like no one was checking, right? Like
mhm,
to see if those things were occurring, or when you're dead and you're like turning around and sprinting back to your healer, if someone's like trying to release you, you might even hear it, or you get back to
mhm.
your healer and they're dead, and you're like, whoa, but putting that aside, it was at the time my goal to prove that despite the class being widely considered like the worst of the two classes, that it had some unique advantages that made it worthwhile. And that's really where I staked my claim on the class. Not only did I want to be an anti-paladin because I thought it was cool, but I thought there was some hidden gems in this class that weren't being appreciated.
Okay. Something that I've kind of been flirting with a little bit back and forth in my head. I kind of wish that Anti-Paladin, one of its archetypes, brought back the undead minion as like with the new undead minion rework. I feel like that wouldn't be like awful anymore, and like I don't know what they would give up for it. I mean, I just think that it'd be kind of neat. So,
I,
what are your
and
thoughts
if
there?
we are going to be talking about the anti-paladin that I became a paragon under, I can give you my thoughts on this. One of the things that we used at the time, we had like a whole setup for how to make this work. But one of the things that made undead minions kind of difficult to use in some
Mm-hmm.
scenarios was that when an undead minion died, it would become insubstantial. You would have to return to the enchanting healer that gave it to you, and a healer was almost never conveniently located like right there in the front lines, right? It
Mm-hmm.
was if you were being a necromancer healer, a lot of, I mean, and you've seen this plenty. There's just some player just sitting in the back going, rise, blah, 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 and then like blah, 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 blah,
Mm-hmm.
just sending waves of undead minions out. But the response time to get there and back was a little bit of a delay, and um, obviously the rule was that if you were within a certain distance of another enemy player, you couldn't bring them back. So even if you were like physically protected, a lot could a lot of people could interfere just by getting too
Right.
close. The anti-paladin kind of solved this problem in many ways. You could use a large shield and a flail and poison the flail and awe anyone who got close to you. And you were immune to multiple schools of magic that could shift you. And so if
Right.
people tried to get close to you, you could tell them to go away. Or if someone without enough armor got too close to you, you could hit him with the crushing, breaking, wounds, killing, stay down, phase flail that just like evaporated someone, and they were just
Mm-hmm.
cursed and whatnot. You get like flame blade, and so you could keep people away from the front line, which meant that your undead minions could bounce back to the action much
A
faster.
lot quicker. Yeah. Okay. still think that that could be a really neat thing. So maybe we'll see that come out in the near future. Probably not, but we can dream. What makes Anti-Paladin unique and stand out from the other martial classes right now?
So I think there's a lot of things that make Anti-Paladin like a unique and fun experience, and I think a lot of people overlook it sometimes in terms of the play experience that it provides. But you get the protection of the heavier armor with a bunch of built-in immunities that stop people from immediately stopping you from doing your job, and that job can be different based on, like what it is that you based on like your archetype choice and your play style. And it's
Hmm.
funny because earlier in the video I mentioned using awe, and I know that there's a couple of your audience that are like, they don't get awes, they get terrors. Well, they got awes before, but terror, the change that brought us that gives us a whole new box to hit people with an immunity that is quite rare. In fact, paladins cannot awe each other, but anti-paladins can terror each other because they do not have immunity to the death skull. They are command and flame. With this sort of archetypeless anti-paladin and the infernal, you have a built-in series of offensive buffs that let you crash through defenses. You can't be None of the anti-paladins can be hit with command ability. So
Right.
your ability to stay on the front lines from a lot of like bard and wizard shenanigans is it's amplified. You can't have your weapons heated. If you are using a polearm, you're not going to run into just a cheeky little heat weapon to take that away from you.
Hmm.
That does give you some protection against, lightning bolts and fireballs as well. Although I will say that that comes up less often than you'd think. Because typically speaking, if you are sitting in spellball range, you're going to get iceballed. It's like is the bane of our existence. But the terror
Hmm.
allows you to push people out of combat so that you can execute your
Hmm.
your shock trooper moment. And when you do engage, because you as a class are so tuned for that initial engagement and not like long drawn out affairs, your breaking crushing weapons, if you have flame blade cast, your chargeable poison that allows your initial first wound to instantly kill someone, and your brutal strike to allow you to turn off abilities, self reses, to keep people dead, allows that initial contact to just be so brutal. And what you end up doing as a class, and it is similar to assassin, except for instead of coming from behind, you're coming straight at him. Is that your initial
Yeah.
engagement is super strong, and you can retreat, recharge your abilities, and then do it again. Poison is rechargeable. Steel Life Essence is rechargeable. Brutal Strike is rechargeable, and you have a Steel Life to help you charge the beefier one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like Anti-Paladin's got a lot going on. And speaking of having a lot going on, we need to take a super quick break for our ad read for the video. Hello again, and welcome to the ad. Today's video is sponsored by me, Paragon Wizard Callahan Richborn, the proprietor of the Almost Battlemaster Callahan YouTube channel. And I'm here today to talk to you because I need your help. When I started this YouTube channel, my goal was to try to get as many Paragons as possible to come in and reveal to us all their secrets so that we can steal their tech and know how to do battle gaming better together. And through my time running the channel, I have started to run out of Paragons that I know and I've been able to get in touch with. So this is where you come in. I've created the Paragon interview recommendation form. There's a spot here to tell me if you're a Paragon interested in coming on the show, and if you're not a Paragon yet, then there's a spot to tell me about local Paragons in your area that you'd like to see on the show. The link to the form is going to be down in the description, and if you click on it, it's going to look just like this, and you're going to be able to go in and recommend Paragons that you think should be on the show. And once they're in there, I will look into contacting them and seeing if they're willing to come on and talk to me. So please recommend people that you know that would be great guests. Thank you, and let's get you back to the main video. And we're back. I'm still here with Tyrant Dash talking about Anti-Paladin. We're going to go through each of the class abilities that Anti-Paladin gets. We're going to roll through each of them and get the words from the master's lips about what's going on here. So We've already kind of briefly talked about command and flame immunity. That's your level 1. Do you have anything you want to elaborate on that?
I will say that, and this will come up later, but Command and Flame are very auspicious immunities because they are the only two immunities for verbals that you don't get later from Void Touch,
Mm.
which is one of the capstone abilities given by the Corruptor thing. So when the Corruptor comes into play, having these naturally means that you can actually be immune to all ranged verbals.
Which has got to be super nice.
It's great.
Well, we'll get there in a minute, but let's talk about poison for a minute. So you get poison once per life, charge times 3.
Yep. I mean, anyone who's played Assassin will know that poison weapon rocks. Being able to swing wounds kill until you get a wound is fantastic. The difference between you and an assassin is you can put it on a 10.5-foot polearm,
Mm-hmm.
or a flail, or a longsword, or a down spear, instead of just some swords, longswords, and whatnot. The poison, I would say, takes an already difficult melee engagement and just makes it worse for that initial breakthrough push. And the charge times 3 makes it very easy to get back. Having the steal life certainly lets you drop multiple ones really fast if that's what you want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't say that it's like critical for playing the class. It's just like an extra bonus.
Okay. So what about that steal life? It's once per life, recharge times 5. I'm always getting killed by anti-paladins when they say steal life, charging steal life. I hate that, but it's just poor man's assassinate. Like, what's the real tech behind this?
I mean, poor man's. You got to be rich to have the armor, right? So maybe it's the rich man's assassinate. I mean, Still Life is great in the sense that and this is what I was going to mention. Not only does it curse the enemy, but it also allows you to recharge something if you need. I tend to find that I use it more as an offensive tool to make sure that other people can't be resurrected. But there are a lot of like really scrappy situations where you can use Steel Life Essence, not just to recharge an ability or to curse your enemy, but actually you can heal a wound with Steel Life. So if you get into like a really nasty situation where you get legged, and you're stuck in someone you don't want to be, either your opponent or a teammate of yours is walking by, you can Steel Life to get back on your feet and get out.
Mm.
And that's something I don't see people do very often. It is worth mentioning, obviously, like Steel Life doesn't work on cursed players, but the Steel Life charge Steel Life is certainly a way for you to make sure that your enemies stay dead.
Okay. Now, brutal strike. Brutal strike for me is a barbarian ability. I've never really spent any perk points into anti-paladin. I like brutal strike, but brutal strike here is once per life, recharge times 10.
Brutal Strike is a per life chargeable ability, and I say that because you get it every life, regardless of whether or not you hit that charge times 10 or not.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal Strike is one of those abilities that when you use it, it's really really good. And when you're not, people are not used to looking for the correct times to use it, and so they don't give it the love that it deserves. I've been in situations where I've been fighting warriors that have gaps in their leg armor, and I come up
Mm-hmm.
and I just swing a wounds kill right in that gap and stay down. You know what I mean? So they can't activate their true grit to get back up.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Because they're
Yeah.
suppressed and cursed. And this is one of those things that I'm always scared when I say that, because someone in the comments is gonna be like, "Well, actually," but I'm like 99% sure that works. In the old Fight After Death, for example, you couldn't fight after death if you got hit
Mm-hmm.
with the and stay down, and so you had to identify your targets. We have situations where healers are reaching out over their people's lines to point at people, and you swat, you hit their hand and stay down. Boom, click. Not only are they wounded, but they can't be healed, and they're suppressed for you
Mm-hmm.
know the period of time. And when you start to identify those situations, and start to utilize Brutal Strike, it's fantastic.
Hmm.
And especially when you start to identify teams that have really reactive healers, just hit someone in the leg with a and stay down. Can oftentimes put a chink in the plan
Hmm.
to get them back up on their feet very quickly. So highly recommend people that aren't using it just start using it. Don't die without having used it, for a while, and you'll start to recognize its value. Additionally, if you are playing Corruptor, you do have the Void Touched Infinite Steel Life. So using Brutal Strike like on every person is not um, a big deal. So why not?
Well, once you've brutal struck them, you have to steal life somebody else to charge it back up, which makes that a little
Yeah,
more
but there's
awkward.
people
But
everywhere.
now you've
You can
cursed
constantly
two of
find
them.
ways to. Yeah,
You get the guaranteed curse and the probable curse, and I can see where that
correct.
works out. Especially if you're better at stick than me. But the charge times 10 on the default anti-paladin feels a little steep to me for a per life ability.
You probably won't recharge it. It's just there to steal
Mhm.
life back if you find someone. But you can stay alive for quite a while. And like you said, yeah, you can't steal life the guy you hit with the
Mhm.
brutal strike. But lots of people die at Callahan.
Yep, there's always somebody that's just waiting around for you. So, you get looked apart terror. If you're playing anti-paladin on a kingdom field, I just assume everybody has looked apart. So you get two terrors per life. How are you maxing those out? What are you doing with them?
Oh, it's you don't get enough terrors. Terror is like the bread and butter. This is the ability that all anti-paladins swear by. Terror, as I mentioned earlier in the video, is great for taking a line of people and then pushing one person out of it.
Hmm.
Keep in mind that terror, as opposed to awe, doesn't target the often covered command immunity. It's a death school magic, and it pushes them at least 50 foot away. And so 50 feet is obviously quite a bit further than 20 feet, especially on constrained fields, which we
Hmm.
talked about being sort of advantageous for anti-paladins. When you are being pushed 50 feet away in an open field, you can just kind of wander off and get released. If you're being pushed 50 feet away on, say, like a Bridge Wars format, you're really going to have to make your support casters come trucking after you. And if you're trying to get somewhere to release yourself and you have to go 50 feet away, the ever pushing line that an anti-paladin enables makes it more and more difficult to find a place that's legal to stand. I, have to do another shout out to Corruptor. All uses of terror become per life charge times 10, which means that
Hmm.
you and a battery bard can make someone have a really bad time, or someone's.
Well, I've been hit with a bunch of terrors, and they're phenomenal at just moving someone out of where they wanted to be, even at a temporary cost. It's still you're using up those resources, and if you're playing Corruptor with that Void Touch to get the terrors back, it's even more reusable. It's phenomenal ability.
It's got a very iconic incantation, Death Makes Thee Terrified, that is
Hmm.
easy to say and easy to hear. So, some incantations are easy to kind of like flub up in your mouth,
Hmm.
or death makes you terrified, death makes you terrified, death makes you terrified is very, very easy. And even if you aren't super clear, it doesn't sound like other incantations. So,
Hmm.
you don't get there's not a ton of time where you're like, oh, what was that? Who?
Yeah,
It's a very easy to cast spell. And it's short. It's for being a 50-foot push that a guy with 4 points of armor gets. It's people don't have a hard time learning it.
it's a lot easier to hear a terror than an awe, I think, because I
Yeah.
command the odd.
Yep.
Like odd is a
Oh,
it's not the same as terror.
it's just like the word odd is just like vowel soup, whereas terrified, like you say, is a very clear, understandable word. Now I'm scared.
Right? I like to throw a little scream, just as I run away. I think that it makes the anti paladins happy on the inside, and you know what? I'm willing to provide that service for them. If you cast terror on me, there's a pretty good shot that I will scream like a little girl as I run away and start releasing myself. So, be the change you
Thank you
want to
for your
see. You're welcome. If there's one thing that I, as a wizard, am always willing to do, it's scream like a little girl if the marshals get too close. So I will flee. It works out great. Let's see what do we got. Oh, Flame Blade. So Flame Blade 2 per refresh. For anyone who doesn't know what Flame Blade does, the incant is the element of fire shall infuse your weapons times 3. It's a red strip and a white strip. And then the bearer's wielded melee weapons are armor breaking and shield crushing. The bearer and their wielded weapons are immune to flame. So you kind of double down on that flame immunity, but you get to add it to your weapons. Have armor breaking, shield crushing. That's always nice. What are you doing with Flame Blade?
I mean, Flame Blade gives you a lot. I will say that my experience with Flame Blade outside of the Infernal archetype is pretty hit or miss. It
Hmm.
is like any class that gets 2 per refresh enchantments. If you are a well-known player with a well-known plan and an integral part of your team, you tend to find that those 2 lives go very quickly unless you are using them
Hmm.
super strategic. As far as having your wielded weapons be immune to flame as well, that can come up. Just because you are immune to flame doesn't mean that you can't have your sword popped by something. Now, unfortunately, Flame Blade doesn't make your armor immune to flame, which would be sick if it did. But can't have it all, right?
Right.
The key here is using weapons that aren't already armor breaking and
Mm.
shield crushing. And so, you have maybe like a speed pole or a down spear or just swords coming in and crush, 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 break, 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 break. It helps accelerate that aspect of the shock troop effect.
Yeah.
When you're coming in and you're swinging, crushing, breaking, wounds kill, crushing, breaking, wounds kill. You know what I mean? Like even the heavily armored opposition is going to crumble really fast, at least for a short amount of time. So that flame blade really just takes over the top. Not only are you crashing into them with a lot of just sort of innate defensive abilities, but the offense that's coming out of you is huge.
Yeah, for sure. Which of these abilities would you say is your favorite or you find the most useful?
Terror, for sure. I mean, I don't know if I don't know if you have like a class defining ability in this sense. Or, the old barbarian fight after death, or you know the um, the bard's songs. The anti-paladin is sort of cobbled together with a bunch of abilities that you see from other classes. Steal Life is a spell that spellcasters can cast. Terror is a bard spell. And it was before it was an anti-paladin ability. Poison Weapon comes from Assassin. Brutal Strikes on barbarians. Flame Blade is an enchantment. These are all abilities that you see in the wild in other places, and so the sort of unique combination of all of them, I think, really creates the class. But I think the per life terror, the regular terror in Bard is a per refresh ability. Now you can experience it, but that doesn't replace the fact that coming out hot with at least 2 terrors of life is, I think, probably the single biggest tool in the toolbox that makes them different than other melee fighters. So if you held a gun to my head and said pick, it would be terror.
Okay. Now, on the opposite side of that, which of the abilities do you find to be the least useful or maybe the most challenging to get good use out of?
Well, they can use javelins. I'm just kidding. I love javelins. I know
They're
that
so bad.
they're not. They're not. You just don't know how to throw them. They're harder to throw. People don't want to learn. You know what? And I saw Nameless come on here and trash talk javelins. And I made it a point to go and throw some javelins at him. The event after he had your interview. But in a lot of ways, the equipment options that you don't use, maybe, I don't know. And
Yeah.
then, of course, if you are playing an archetyped anti-paladin, I think the flame blade is probably the least useful part of the kit, just because we do a lot of, at least in the Rising Winds, we do a lot of like high sustain gameplay
Hmm.
where 2 refresh abilities, a 2 per refresh is just not something that's making a huge impact unless you're not dying and your team is winning, in which case you were already winning anyways and you didn't
Right,
need it.
right.
So it's kind of a win more kind of ability. Now the infernal, and we didn't. I don't know if you have this earmarked for later in your video, but the infernal gets
Right.
an infinite amount of of flame blades, and so my answer changes if we're talking infernal. Um,
Right. Which we will
and
talk
I'll
about Infernal in just a minute here. We'll talk about both of
okay,
the other archetypes, but I mean, we could jump ahead to those if you want to, but I do
dear
want to
show.
give you an I want to give you an opportunity real quick to tell us maybe a story about when you were playing Anti-Paladin back before the rules changed. Like, what's something cool you were able to do with the old rule set?
Okay, so and I know that this is a sweaty channel for sweaty gamers, so this is a little bit of a flirby story, but I am a well-known role-playing enthusiast on top of everything else. There is a bard enchantment called Silver Tongued. All right, and Silver Tongued gives you chargeable swifts that you can use. Now, when you get them as an
Okay.
anti-paladin, there's not like a ton of things that you can cast with Swift, right? Like you can Swift a brutal strike, and it's one sentence anyways, and you know what I
Hmm.
mean. There's like a lot of rules compunctions with that whole sentence. But the old undead minion, you could Swift with a silver tongue enchantment. And I would go into night quests, and whenever we would kill monsters, the first monster on the enemy team that I would kill, I would swift undead minion them back to life. Now, there's no rule that says that a person that's your undead minion has to do what you say, but this is more of like a force of personality thing, where some guy's been just having to go through the same encounter like over and over and over again. He dies, you grab him, you say swift, rise. I forget the last line of the thing nowadays. It's
Yeah.
been a long time since I've had to cast it. But and you'd say go kill your friends, and the monster was just like, hell yeah. Every time I ever did it, they would immediately turn and be my undead minion. Yeah, 100% tyrant. I'm gonna go kill my friends. And the variety of monsters that I would get the swift on, because they just don't have time to think about it. What? I'm alive? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shout out to Undead Minion for having one of the sickest incants in the game. I remember having to tape it to the back of my shield, just
Hmm.
because I never learned it. When I was 15 years old and I was like walking to, my crappy first job from my house, and I was going sword cut, spear stab, me smash, arrow jab. I had the neuroplasticity to learn the healing spell, but by the time they gave us the
Hmm.
undead minion when I was too old.
Oh, well, that was a
If
great
if that
story.
works, yeah.
I love this. Okay. Well, now let's talk about the archetypes. Do you want to talk about Infernal or Corruptor first? Because both are fantastic, I think.
Let's start with Infernal, because I think Infernal is the go-to archetype for like playing the easiest, best anti-paladin.
All
Um,
right. So
and I
Infernal specifically says you get 2 fireballs, and Flame Blade becomes recharge times 5, but you may not wield
yes,
shields, and you lose all instances of Steel Life Essence, which is I feel like that's a pretty decent trade. Like you're losing versatility, gaining per refresh. Flame Blade charge times 5.
and the fireballs, you can't sleep on the
The
fireballs. And
fireballs are
anyone
good.
who
Fireballs are a great spell. Like,
they are, it not only is it a great spell, but people just don't like it. It's about platforms, right? and
mhm,
and anti-paladin is a better platform for fireball than wizard. Like if you have to run up and toss a little ball at someone, you are like naturally putting yourself in a situation that is dangerous.
mhm,
An anti-paladin that has a fireball doesn't care if the fireball kills you or not. They run up, they huck a death ball at you. Maybe you die, maybe you don't, and then they start doing anti-paladin things. It's like
right.
a meme in the sense that if it kills you, great. If it doesn't, no big deal. And so
Mhm,
it's a totally like zero cost. Maybe you die sort of thing that happens right at the beginning of combat. And if you're keeping track at home, what is one of my favorite times in combat for an AT Paladin? It's right at the beginning. That's right where they
mhm,
shine the hardest. So having this little projectile that is leagues better than a javelin,
mhm,
it kills people, is fantastic. You lose shields, but you have these flame blades. I don't know if shields in many situations for unarchetyped and infernal type paladins are really that good anyways,
mm,
because we're talking about a high offense class. I know
yeah.
Vin plays anti-paladin with a down spear and a sword, and
Mhm,
likes to run in and use the range on the down spear to like inflict those shots from a range where you can't quite engage her.
mhm,
I know a lot of people who play Infernal just get a pole arm. They hold the fireballs in their hand. They use the pole arm and then they huck the fireballs when it's most appropriate. But also, you don't need a crushing breaking pole because you're constantly flame bladed, so you can have like a skinny little speed pole, and you can lay a lot of heat with that thing.
yeah,
The
for
the
sure.
losses of the steel life essence means you can't do your assassin thing. You're not cursing everybody you come across, but that's okay.
I feel like you're getting a lot for that trade, though. Like,
Yep.
Especially with how weak the cursed state is generally right now. I feel like you're giving up. Yes, you are giving something up. Like you feel that loss, but you're okay with it. Like it just feels like a really good archetype. And like you were saying, like if you've got the fireball, like you can do the cheeky druid thing where you have the ice ball in one hand and you've got the pole arm. And you're like, oh, oh no, they're running at me, ice ball. You can have that druid moment, but the reverse where it's actually good.
Yeah, I
And
was going to say, instead of you running away and hooking the fireball, I tend to find that it's walking forward, throwing the fireball, and then engaging with your polearm. So it's, I don't know if the fireball itself is like an effective button, in the same way that an ice ball
mhm.
is, because the ice ball, like wherever it hits you, you're just frozen. Like the whole
It's
encounter
definitely
briefly
the
stops.
opposite.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're on the opposite end of that. It's definitely pure offense. And so you played Infernal a bit, right? And
Yeah, I played Infernal.
my question is, with the amount of Guardian Paladins now, with all the imbued shield, are you getting good use out of that fireball? Does it feel like it's worth, like throwing at the
Yeah,
beginning?
there's always some idiot right behind the paladins that doesn't expect to get hit with a fireball. I mean, I,
Mm,
I think I think you see this a lot where people say, "Oh, now that we've made anti-paladins and paladins free for everybody, that bards are dead." You know what I mean? Because they've only got command and death spells, or you know, oh, now that we've given out all these, imbue shield, snipers or spell balls are worthless. And there's so many people out there playing so many different classes still, that it's like, if bard was dead, why are there so many bards around still, right? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and if and don't get me wrong, I do think that the prevalence of Guardian Paladin it exists because it is good and because it is letting people play Amtgard. But
mm,
we have a class that's just immune to verbals, right? I
we
think
do.
we have built Guardian Paladin into a class that's kind of like immune to your shield. Guardian Paladin is the class that stops shields from being good, right? And I think that having a class that stops shields from being nerfed with like crushing breaking or spell
Hmm.
balls or specialty arrows, it's okay. One, they have to block, so if you throw a
Right,
fireball at their shin, they're still dead. And two, um, and it can be dispelled. And also,
right,
once again, you're an anti-paladin. If the fireball hits an imbue shield, you have 4 points of armor and a crushing, breaking pole arm and swords and stuff. Like, you can deal with it.
right.
Your
And
your, your whole class doesn't hinge on that one thing.
I feel like the meta adapts to stuff, right? Like
Yes.
you've got to have a plan. And if you know that there's a Guardian Paladin, just don't throw the fireball at the Guardian Paladin. Throw it at the warrior or the barbarian or the guy
Yeah.
standing behind the Guardian Paladin waiting to res that dude. Like you've got options still. Like
Yes. And like, if your whole kit only has one problem to solve, it better be unsolvable, because otherwise it will get solved.
yeah, I agree. All right, well let's look at Corruptor then. So Corruptor, they gain Void Touched, 2 per refresh, magical. All use of terror becomes 1 per life charge times 10. They may not wield great weapons or javelins, and they lose all instances of Flame Blade.
So you're swapping the Flame Blade for Void Touched. Void Touched is really interesting. It's just packed full of value. It is one of the densest enchantments. You get armor breaking on your melee weapons. You get a
Yep,
Shadow Step that's got charge times 30, but
it's
you
a
get
lot.
unlimited Steel Life Essence. You are immune to magical abilities from the Sorcery, Spirit, and Death schools. I just want to clarify, magical is the key word. You are
Yep,
not immune to non-magical abilities from these schools. And then you can still benefit from your own Still Life Essence, and then you are cursed.
that is exactly what the
So,
text says. He is
yes.
100% correct.
And it's interesting too. Also, sick incant, embrace the old ones and surrender thyself. It's because you were already immune to command and flame, you are now immune to magical verbals from the command, flame, sorcery, spirit, and death schools. Which, for those of you out there, that's all of them. That's that's all of the verbal schools.
If
You're
the Steel
still
Life charge, Steel Life is the rich man's assassinate. The Void Touch is the rich man's enlightened soul.
is yes, exactly. There you go. And it still suffers from the same problems that that I complained about earlier, where you only get uh the two flame blades. But unlike the flame blades, because the flame blade, in order to get value from it, you got to be like in it. Like you have to be hitting people, right? The corruptor is interesting. One, it kind of incentivizes a sneakier, more standoffish type of anti-paladin play. I recently worked together
Okay.
with one of my squires men at arms, a guy named Gonti, out of Grim Garrison, which is in Lexington. He kitted him up into the anti-paladin kit, and I played sort of an enchanter bar, and I gave him the it's called amplification. It gives you a rechargeable extend. Now
Oh, that's
the corruptor.
mean.
Oh, I'm terrible. Yeah. And so what happened here is as I sat by him as a battery bard, essentially he got to launch, repeatedly launch extension terrors, rechargeable per life terrors, from a platform that you couldn't hit with verbals of any kind, and you couldn't go chase down because he was wearing 4 points of armor everywhere. And he had the shield, you know what I mean? If you did get close to him, he could have the poison cooked already. You know what I mean? And so like the
Yeah.
first person, so everything I said about hitting first and causing a ton of damage works in reverse. The first person to come to try to deal with that problem just gets smoked. And and that has a psychological effect where like the first couple times you go to try to like break out from the pack and deal with this little terror beam satellite, and you just get rocked. You just don't want to do it anymore. It becomes a less attractive option. And if the fight requires more muscle, they can certainly just move in and do that. And if you are just hucking extension terrors, at people, then it's very hard for people to really do any kind of like serious counterplay to that, because you can just back up. You know, um,
Yeah. Well, they
and
can't
you can't
suppress you.
suppress you exactly.
Yeah. You're
So
immune to that
yeah.
already. So what are they gonna
Uh-huh.
do? They're like they're gonna have to try to dispel you, and at that point you're already extending, so you're already at
Yeah.
range. So it's like, yeah,
Yep.
no. And you can just
Yep.
once they're terrored, you can just start moving them.
And
That
if
is
you don't have a
wicked.
battery bard, you can kind of play on the edge of fighting like this too, where you use your infinite steel lives to kind of drain your own team if there's no like built, like if your team doesn't have a healer or whatever, or you
Hmm.
have some rule set that doesn't make that attractive. Like as they filter back from the battle, you can just use your infinite steel lives to, to recharge your terrors or if you win a huge engagement, you can move through and get your things back. So you can kind of uh, do the terror engage wipe recharge thing faster and more often. I think the shadow step that that can save you from certain situations. A lot of
Right.
people shadow step in really bad times where they just get caught in a bad spot that they can't get away from. But like if you shadow step and someone tracks you out of it and they don't have an overwhelming advantage, they still have to fight through all 4 points of your armor and your wounds kill and stuff like
Right.
that. So, you know what I mean? That you can definitely have a situation where um, it's it's safer to do so. And then naturally with the charge times 30 shadow step, you're just using the steel lives to get that back. You're not gonna like hard cast the
You're not
shadow
gonna
step.
hard
I've done it a
recharge
few
the.
times. It's happened. Song of Power only 15, but no,
Oh
probably not.
boy, of only 15. What a discount. I mean, I've also hard cast the times 30 recharge, and that's a rough recharge.
But yeah, I think Corruptor um, turns the anti-paladin into less of a shock trooper and more of like a
Hmm.
heavy flanker that has like
Mm.
a expanded sort of defensive suite where they can afford to lurk and engage, and there is no like real way to sort of stop them from doing that. And so the corruptor benefits from a bigger field in the same way that most other anti-paladins don't. um,
Mm.
you still have armor. You can use shields again because the infernal doesn't get that. This one can. And but overall, other than being a trixier style of play, I tend to find myself playing corruptor like when I don't have all my gear, or like if
Okay.
I've brought my like sword and shield to the park and that's like it, and I want to play sort of a less aggressive play style, then that's when I'll play corruptor. I don't think it's as good as the infernal, but because it has these unique tool sets, like I said, you can turn it into a really interesting, like sort of heavy caster artillery.
Yeah. Okay. Well, when you are playing on like a kingdom level, what equipment are you bringing? What does your kit look like?
I'm almost always like if I mean it depends on it being really sweaty or not, but I think that the pole arm, the speed pole infernal is just really fantastic. I have armor. I have a kit on my chest and my legs that is at least 4 points, made by the wonderful Varl. He created a fantastic set of armor that goes over a gambeson that averages out to at least 4. That's made of aircraft aluminum, so it's incredibly durable. It's incredibly light. It doesn't weigh me down. Same with my greaves. So I'll end up going 4, and then I've got a 2-point gambeson on my arms. Eventually, I think the plan is to take that same aluminum and get bracers for all of yokai. But for now, it's that kit. I have a brace on my back that has Kybex like plastic clips that have javelins in them, so I don't
Yeah,
have
I've
to
seen you
carry
doing
around
that.
javelins. I take them out and throw them, and then they can clip back in. It holds 3 javelins, so however you feel about javelins, when it's time to use them, I've just got them. So that's nice. And
Now, I
then
gotta get a better look at that backpack tech that you've got going on. I tried to steal your idea with a sword over the shoulder, and I couldn't make it work. But I didn't have the full chest plate either. So maybe send me a picture when we're done with
I'll
this, because
shout out some people. The original pattern for the leather chest piece was made by Haliax, who's formerly of the Rising Winds, and I think lives in either Crystal Groves or Gold. I think it's Crystal Groves, but I don't know. The Kydex, uh, I think, were originally designed and created by TB, who has a similar back piece. And there's a couple of them going around, and so those 2 people will be able to help you. But I'm always happy to shout out artisan where I can.
yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Let's see here. So, what about your weaknesses as an anti-paladin? What is anti-paladin weak to? How are you getting around those weaknesses?
The tyranny of the ice ball is very alive and well, with warriors having ancestral armor and paladins either being immune to magic entirely or having the guardian shield. They are not excellent targets for it. You neither have a built-in immunity to it. Most anti-paladins have an offensive skill set, so they are charging forward, which makes you really vulnerable. And then, of course, just the prevalence of like sorcery magic as well. You don't have sort of the resilience um, of warriors to kind of bring themselves back to life or to shake off their debuffs. And then of course with paladins, you never know whether or not they're totally immune to magic or you know they travel in packs. So if you get icy blasted and shatter, they'll just res each other. It's you sort of you're a good target for some of the heavier hitting um, spells, things like Finger of Death and Icy Blast, and then of course getting shoved into oblivion. And that's why a lot of times your engagement has to be well thought out. You terror the wizard and then engage the line while the wizard has to back up, or you terror the
Right.
healer with the ice ball so you can engage before that thing can be tossed at you. They're not allowed to throw it at you while they're terrored. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of thinking going on.
Okay. So you're kind of playing the terror into trying to prevent that from coming at you then.
And then I think one of the classes that plays very similarly to Anti-Paladin is Barbarian, in the sense that you're also sort of an offensively minded engagement kind of character. But they don't have to worry about ice balls because they're immune to subdual spells. They
Bring
just don't.
Barbarian back. I still want Barbarian to get 4 points. I think if you gave Barbarian 4 points, it's right up there with everybody else, and becomes maybe popular again. Because
Yeah, there's a number of things. I don't think Rage really works, but I guess that's a discussion for a different video, probably.
yeah, maybe I'll bring you back on sometime and we can talk about rules changes. But the Barbarian definitely needs something to buff it. But that's a video down the line. We'll get there eventually. Let's see here. So I want to ask about large shields because there's only 3 classes in the game that get large shields. You got warrior, you got paladin, anti-paladin. How do you feel about large shields just on a personal level?
I think they're cool. They're neat. I think that for most of the fighting that I do, they're a bit too big in the sense that the defensive value that they bring does not make up for the way they kind of get in the way of the fighting. And then I don't think Anti-Paladin has enough incentives to keep those things alive anyways. So if you're going into battle with a large shield, it's going to get hit by an ice ball or hit by the half dozen breaking crushing effects on the front line. I think that there are situations where a warrior or a guardian paladin might want to use one. And sort of like the modern meta Amp Guard, I don't see a reason for an anti-paladin to do so.
I kind of agree with your take there. It doesn't look like a great thing for them to be carrying. It seems to increase their vulnerability without increasing deadliness, which is what they're going for.
Unless you have like a Pavis of some kind, and you can like, just truly massive shield that stands up on its own. I don't know.
Well, I've looked into that. I don't think we can have those under the rule book. Like if
I
you put
don't
up a
think those,
shield,
yeah.
like it's just gonna fall over, and like it's not gonna do much good for you.
Questionably illegal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like neat idea. Probably not. Okay, what is a class that you love to see in your team? What does Anti-Paladin want to team up with?
Other melee fighters, if you're the only melee threat on your team as an AP, you're gonna have a bad time. I think that they work really well with bards because they have a lot of rechargeable abilities that have value. I think that the anti-paladin is at its best when it's engaging with an otherwise self-sufficient front line. So paladins and warriors are great to have on your team. And then you always want a good battle mage to make sure that the enemy wizard is taken care of, because you can't play the game if you're frozen all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you already kind of mentioned the frozen problem, but is there any like particular classes that Anti-Paladin just can't deal with effectively?
Struggle into archers really bad, just because having your polearm broken constantly without some of the built-in protections, like having it hardened, or the fact that your shield can't soak specialty arrows, and it's difficult for you to get to them. I think that it's difficult to play into druids sometimes, because druids have a lot of built-in things that sort of all come together to make your life pretty tough. When we're talking about druids, I'm going to talk about some things that druids can do to you, and it's not uncommon to find all of them on the same druid, right? You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like they can have a crushing breaking polearm. They can have ancestral armor that only comes off one at a time, so you're not, taking off huge chunks with your crushing breaking weapon. You have ice balls, you have icy blasts, you have releases, so if you hit them with the terror, they can back up and fix themselves. Like they can release their buddies. They can, it's a lot. I don't think that druids in general are as strong as everybody says they are, but like 1v1 kind of scenario, it just in a vacuum, a druid has a lot of things that it can do to you that you don't have an answer for other than terror.
Something I've said for a while about druid is it's the second best at everything because it gets access to most types of abilities in ways that it doesn't have to make sacrifices to get access to.
It's a two-way street. A lot of druid players complain that there's like 2 druid builds, and that's it. Like every single person knows exactly what you're packing. You know what I mean? Like, and there's no flexibility. Like by the time you buy everything that's like a must-have on the druid list, you've only got a handful of points, and a lot of your sneaky surprise plays are like, oh, I bought Corrosive Mist once, or
Right.
oh, I spent all my 5th level points on Resurrect so I can Swift Res twice. Ever.
Yeah.
It's like it's not a very compelling like deviation from buying, say, like Iron Skin.
Yeah, that's fair. And I haven't played a ton of druid, but it does feel like the sameness of every druid list is kind of cooked into it. And
if druid was so busted, like people like pretend that it is sometimes, you would see more druids. Like the same way that we see guardian paladins right now. If druids were busted, why didn't we see like every caster playing druid? You know what I mean? Like, and you didn't. And so it would naturally have occurred more often, I think, if it was truly that game breaking.
I think part of it is that high skill players tend to be memorable and tend to have good skill expression. Druid is a class that specifically can allow for melee fighters that are also good casters to express both of those skills at once in a way that other classes might struggle. Like if you're playing healer, it's
Yeah.
hard to like if you get your own armor. Bard can do it, but Bard, I feel like just I don't know why it isn't as popular.
I played Bard during Bridge Wars here, so Armor Bard. In fact, our
Mhm.
team had 2 druids, a wizard, and a bard, and no healers. So take that as you will. But we might be getting off track.
I mean, you guys did win Bridge Wars, so somebody might want to take some notes. I do want to ask you about that afterwards because like the no
Sure.
healer move that, and I'm just gonna ask you now, whose call was it to not have a healer, or was there just no one available?
So, when you have as many like high skill players, I mean, we have multiple Paragon healers in Yokai. Just off the top of my head, my immediate belt line has me, Paragon healer. My squire, or my old squire, now a knight, Six Twilis, is a Paragon healer, and then of course we got Ishin below, either having it, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
almost certain that Ishin is a Paragon healer at this point as well. So 3 generations of Paragon healer just in my belt line alone. We have Basan, who is a Paragon healer. So, there's not a lack of people willing to play healer, but I will say that a lot of the compositional elements were created by Twilis, who was like the architect of the team. And Yokai is kind of an anarcho-collectivist sort of hum of scum, a hive of scum and villainy.
Mm.
So, we make a lot of decisions together, but we just kind of looked at all the rule sets and said that we don't think with 10 people the healer is good here. And we were apparently right.
Apparently, I mean, I had two healers on my team, and we
A
did
lot of people had 2
much
healers.
worse. We did much worse. So, we did pretty okay. I'm pretty happy with my Bridge Wars, how that all went out, based on the teams that we fought and when. So, but let's circle back in here. Are there any common misconceptions about anti-paladin?
A lot of people think anti-paladins are immune to death. They're not. You, they, paladins can't awe each other. Paladins can terror each other. Um, as far as like misconceptions go, I'm not sure. The class has changed frequently, and I don't think that there is enough of a visual indicator to tell people when you're playing different archetypes. And I think anti-paladin archetypes um, are different enough that I wish that there was some easy way of telling. You know what I mean? Just because
Yeah,
Corruptor and Infernal are just vastly different play styles. But I don't know if that really fits within the wheelhouse of your question. I'm not sure what misconceptions people have um, about anti-paladins.
like
So
something that I'd like to unpack a little bit here because you're a phenomenal example of this. I don't choose my words carefully because I could sound mean here, but you're when you role play as the bad guy, you role play as a bad guy, but not being a jerk about it.
thank you.
Like I feel like I'm
Um,
circling a bush here, but like you, when you're playing the bad guy, you clearly are the bad guy, but you as a human person are not a bad guy.
maybe there are
You
misconceptions
know?
that people who play anti-paladins are dicks that like to see people suffer. Some people just aren't very good at boundaries and role play. Like some people take, and you see this in all sorts of role-playing environments where, whether or not it's Dungeons and Dragons, my character would act. Well, you wrote
Mm-hmm.
your character, so this is your fault for writing a dick. You know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah.
I'm an anti-paladin. You should expect me to be a jerk, and it's like, yeah, but you hit me in the head 4 times and said, "Suck it up, wiener." Like, that's not
Mm-hmm.
like you decided to be that way, and using sort of the bad guy class is just as bad as, say, playing a barbarian and just completely losing control of your arms and not worrying about, you know what I mean, like what you're doing, or or something like that. I think that there is certainly a if you are going to lean into the more role playing side of anti paladin, you have to make sure that whatever way you are expressing your villainry is one that isn't sort of taking away from other people's role play. And I think that that's true in general. The type my character usually comes across as sort of a comically evil,
Mm-hmm.
unlikable thug but at the same time, most of the people that I do that to or with are collaborators of mine. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
when I am killing someone at court, more often than not, it has been their idea. You know what I mean? Like as Pesk, for his character Edgar, came to me and said, "Will you murder me at court?" You know what I mean? And so like this is an
And that was
experience that
super
they are.
memorable. That was insane
Um,
that happened.
and and people in your audience are like people that court all the time. We actually had a blood bag inside his garb that we ruptured with the execution, and he sat and bled out on the concrete floor at our site. People had to like step over the ever-growing pool of blood to get their awards.
It was so cool.
In order to,
It went so
but
hard.
and sort of cultivating that role play is something that can varyingly have some battlefield effects. But like if you are just being sold to everyone because you've got a silver sash on, because you think you're sort of entitled to it, I think you're being a bad friend and a bad member of your community.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you just said there. And like, just to try to sum it up, it's like you can be a bad guy but still a good participant.
It's that line from Wreck-It Ralph. You are a bad guy, but that doesn't mean you have to be a bad guy.
I feel like Anti-Paladin has a large amount of space that you can really investigate and play in and have fun with. And like I've seen a couple of people do it really well, and you're one of them. So I did want to bring that up and give you a chance to talk about it. So
Thank you, thank you.
I want to shift gears a little bit. I know here in the Rising Winds we have our Circle of Paragon, and we act as an advisory board. But what is something specifically an anti-paladin player could do to stand out to the Circle of Paragon?
I think it's a little bit of ability usage is key. I think that when you have anti-paladins, you're sort of you kind of need both, right? You have to display some kind of like martial skill, and you have to use your ability. We talked a lot about never watching anyone using brutal strike, and that's the first thing that gets my eye when I see other APs using brutal strike. I'm like, oh hey. I think that because you are such an effective class, with so many various different abilities, like combining them all into like very heroic and cool moments is one of those things that can make you stand out. And also do a little bit of aura farming. Be a little scary. Dress up. Put some face paint on, man. Like, I think that when I see anti-paladins that are sort of blending into the crowd, it's because they haven't quite done enough to be like, yeah, I'm a scary evil knight. You know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
at least a blackguard of some variety. I don't always. I think that like being in yokai, we have this joke that in order to become a paragon, you have to have a funny hat. And a funny hat doesn't necessarily mean like literally a hat. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Although hilariously, we've had a couple of people that have been struggling that literally purchased a funny hat and then later got their paragon shortly thereafter, which I think is why we
That's
have the joke, right?
Yeah,
But
no,
like
it makes sense.
if you wanna be a paragon archer, get like a cool hand sleeve and maybe like a hat with a feather in it, or you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like if you wanna be a paragon paladin, like your armor should probably be like shiny. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or if you are playing a monk having like the little straw, wicker hats. You know what I mean? Oh,
Yeah.
she's mystical.
Mhm. The drip
She's got an
matters in these
instrument. She's a
things.
bard. Yeah, exactly. So like, I mean, I don't know. Hashtag get a funny hat. Get a cool mask.
Yeah. There's so much you could do with anti-paladin that can take you beyond like dude wearing armor all the way up to like terror on the battlefield.
And don't get me wrong. Like, you should never in this modern day and age get like a paragon off of aesthetics alone. But if you feel like you're on the cusp and you don't have like a character or a look or an aura of some variety, the funny hat can just be the way you act. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you don't have to go and buy things, but like it can really help you stand out because some people do really well. They're just not very memorable, and for
Being
everything else,
memorable is
there's
the
funny
big
hats.
thing because no one remembers you were there. You didn't make it. Like you might have been the most important battle gamer on your team, and you scored all the points. But if no one remembers, it doesn't make a big
Well,
difference.
if you think you're the most important person on your team and nobody remembers who you are, you probably weren't the most important person on your team. But
Yes, but You know what I mean.
Yeah, sure. But I mean,
There's a
this
lot of
is where it's
invisible
interesting.
work that goes into a battle game. Like if you're
Sure,
playing a shatter
absolutely.
battle and you stand in the back playing Resbot healer the entire time, you might have been the most important person on your team and no one will remember because they were all up killing people.
Oh,
And
absolutely. This is a conversation me and Twilis had when Twilis was trying to get their Paragon healer. He did a lot of support casting, and I was like, hey, like I believe that support healers deserve this honor, but just be aware that doing this is going to be naturally harder this way. You know, as you do this support, you're just going to be naturally less flashy and noticeable. It might take longer. Doesn't mean you don't deserve it. It doesn't mean that's
mhm,
fair. But when we are thinking of players that are having like an outsized effect on the battlefield, and we're trying to remember them, the people that are making plays, you know what I mean, are the ones
mhm.
that are coming to the front of mind. So
And not
I
necessarily
completely
the
agree.
dude that enchanted that guy to make him able to do the play.
Correct. Or the person that released him the fourth time he got iceballed, or you know,
Hmm.
it's
Well, and you get those like you almost have to just announce who you are. Like there's so many times where you're like, okay, hey, this healer or this bard really supported me and helped me be really effective this game, and I want to make sure to try to recognize that. So I'll go and tell them like, hey, you really helped me out. But then like you follow up later and you're like, oh crap, what was that dude's name? Like it's a little different than if there's a problem player on the other team and you're constantly trying to cast at them. You know, I'm like, Ash, stop it. You know, so
definitely.
I can see where that comes from. Let's see here. Okay, is there a fictional character that best represents how you play anti-paladin?
I mean, like the classic Sith Lord, right? From
Mm,
Star Wars. You got
hmm.
your Darth Vader. I think is really a huge influence. You go in there, you use your force powers, you cut everyone down, and you let the stormtroopers take over, right? I think um, that there's lots of fun examples of like dark knights in various fiction. I think like the Hound from Game of Thrones has very anti-paladin energy.
Okay,
Other than are more like in terms of like a more magical fantasy, you have like Mordekaiser from League of Legends, or like any of the various like sort of Dark Knight D&D classes like Oathbreaker, Paladin, stuff like that.
okay.
Very much like a might makes right, and like terror and destruction on the battlefield is very much. I like to imagine that I am wreathed in dark energy and sending little soldiers away like I'm Sauron.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it's the Sith Lord is really
I
the
gotcha.
archetypical.
You're kind of standing there like mocking them as you're unmaking their team.
Oh yes, this is not hard. You guys are peasants.
Yeah. Okay. What's the coolest thing you've done as an anti-paladin in the current rule set?
The coolest thing I've done. I mean, there's always a couple of like moments as an anti-paladin that make you really stand out to people, and I always think of the ones that, like I guess, are like the most aura farming moments rather than
Hmm.
the maybe the most effective ones. You see someone throw a fireball and you punch it out of the air so it doesn't hit your armor or your equipment, and you hit you say no or immune. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I have in the past just said no and instead of immune, which is technically against the rules, but nobody ever was confused about what happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's no anti-paladin. You know what I mean? Like and every time you've done that, every time I've ever punched it out of the air, whoever do it was like, oh no, like oh I made a terrible mistake.
You
Like
know,
yeah.
you know what that makes me think of? That scene in Star Wars 5 where Han Solo opens the door and then there's Darth Vader. He's like, "No." That
Exactly. Yeah.
exact energy is what we're describing here.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and there's nothing like that that sort of typifies that sort of like disregard for what is happening than to just swat a lightning bolt out of the air with your hand, and be done with it. Um, as far as like cool moments go, I can't pick one out of a hat. I do enjoy stacking as many enchantments as possible on top of a flail. So like the poison weapon and the
Yeah.
flame blade, you know what I mean, and the
Hmm.
brutal strike, and you swing over like a healer shield and hit them with the crushing, breaking, wounds kill, and stay down, and they're just gone. You know what I mean? They're just
Yeah.
completely a pile of dust. I will say that one of the things that I have done that is cool from like a rules standpoint that most people
Hmm.
don't think about is I have solicited the Gift of Fire enchantment. This
That's
gives
a good
you
one.
not only a rechargeable heat weapon, it does give you, and people will be like, well, you already immune to flame. You know what
But
I mean?
also
Like,
your
why would you want
equipment.
it? I don't think that Gift of Fire makes your equipment immune to flame.
Oh, it doesn't?
Um, but the heat weapon, the rechargeable heat weapon, is one refresh charge times 3. So
Right.
we were talking about things that let you keep people at bay or create opportunities for you to bang in. If you are having a hard time fighting because there's just this wicked pole arm, you know what I mean, that you can't shift, you can just
Yeah.
heat it away, and then yeah, charge times 3 ain't nothing, man.
Yeah.
Um,
This is a great. I like Gift of Fire. I want more Gift of Fire on the battlefield. This is great. Okay. Let's see. So, we have a fun Christmas time question. The fun Christmas question is if you could invent a new ability for your class, we're going to ignore balance. We're just giving a Christmas present, like rule of cool. We'll fix it in post. What is the thing that you're going to give Anti-Paladin? What's the desire of their heart?
I would like the ability to vengefully kill the person that killed me after I was dead. It's going to be the opposite of the warrior self res. It's a
Mm-hmm.
post death, verbal that I can cast to bring the person who killed me with me.
Oh, it'd be
Anyone who's
so
hit me in the
cool.
last like 5 seconds, as my dying breath I curse thee, as my dying breath I curse thee, as my dying breath I curse thee, killed. You know what I mean? And maybe,
Yeah.
like you could have a range and I couldn't move before I cast it or something. You know what I mean? Like the vengeance pact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To slay someone after I was dead. I think that would be sick.
That would be really neat. Especially like
Yeah, right.
I like that. Like I would play anti-paladin if that was a thing because I die every time I play melee. Like I'm playing. It doesn't matter how many points of armor you give me. I am not fast enough to be good. But if I can be like, yeah, I can come up here and I can fight all these, and then the guy kills me, like, haha, you're coming with me.
Right.
I love that. That is a
And there'd be
great.
like strategic decisions you'd have to make too. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like if you're fighting, everyone, maybe don't kill the anti-paladin until like later in the engagement because, like, him, picking
Yeah,
like once your team's like one, you save him for last, freeze him or whatever. And then of course, like, doing some kind of maybe like being suppressed or cursed or whatever would stop it from working. And so you can put some counterplay in it. I don't know,
yeah,
but the death pact. There you go, the vengeance
yeah.
ray.
I like this. I feel like that's just fixed fight after death. Like
Yeah, sure.
the big thing with
Kill
fight
me and
after
take someone
death
with you.
was whoever killed you, you take them with you, and then hopefully
Yeah.
one guy. But the problem with fight after death, everyone was always like, yeah, they fight too wild. Like if that, like I will
I
stand
thought it was
still.
fine. I think
I
everybody
also
was
thought it was
really just
fine.
like being super uncool about it, and they broke Barbarian. But whatever,
If a
whatever.
if you have an
I'm not mad.
ability, like
Not bitter.
I'm a little annoyed about it because if you've got an ability that is so unsafe because the least played class has this ability and then for 21 seconds a game they get to be immune to everything and they get to make the warlord shake in his boots, but they're playing unsafely because they're too wild. Like then we need to ban pole arms. Like pole
I
arms
think this was
also
more of
need
an
the ban.
issue with unskilled players. A lot of barbarian players were new, and so you tended
Yes.
to have a less controlled group of people, and you people will say, well, it should be safe for everybody to use, but like you said, a pole arm is just as dangerous in the hand of a less skilled player. So I think it was fine, but whatever. The people spoke. It's probably never returning, so
I doubt it returns.
we can.
Like my vendetta is then we unlock paladin and anti-paladin, let anybody play it, but then we prestige pole arms, so you have to have level 6 in a class before you can use a pole. This is
Oh,
my fight after death revenge. So okay, I've got 3 questions for you, and then I will let you go. What is your next Amp Guard goal? What are you working on right now?
you asked me this. last time to you about Pole Scout. I still think Pole Scout is amazing. It occurred to me in the intervening like 5 months that I'm not physically fit enough to do that to the standard that I want, and so
Yeah.
I've shifted gears a little bit. I'm still gonna go for it. But in the meantime, I've been playing a ton of Bard. Playing a ton of Bard with like a bunch of really silly lists. Agoraphobia. I played Armor Bard famously at Bridge Wars, a role that I've taken on a bunch, and I've solicited feedback, and I'm gonna try playing some heavily stacked support battery bards without weapons. But right now the biggest goal that I have for Amtgard is to work with the yokai to further cement our place as the premier fighting company in the Rising Winds, both in skill, but in respectability and honor. And I think that our recent win was about as clean as you can hope to get. So
Yeah.
I want to build up the homies and make us a feared fighting force.
Okay. If someone out here in the Rising Winds is watching this video, they want to learn more about Anti-Paladin, maybe they want to seek out an apprenticeship, is that something you're open to right now? How would you want them to get in touch with you?
Not only would I love to have you, but we have a Facebook group chat called the Menace Meditation. You can join the meditations, and you too can be a bigger menace. Please.
Fantastic. Do you have any final advice for the Anti-Paladins before we go?
You must crave violence. If you do not crave violence, this is the wrong class for you.
All right. Well, a huge thank you to Tyrant Ash for coming back on the show. It's been so much fun talking Anti-Paladin with you. To you, our viewers, thank you. Couldn't do this without you. Can't wait to see you back tomorrow for the next day in the 12 Days of Paragons. I've got a really stacked
Merry
lineup.
Christmas!
I think it's going to be so good. We're so excited. And I'll see you tomorrow in the next video. Have a great night, everybody.